Hi everyone, my name is Alex Chester and I'm the editor-in-chief of Mixed Asian Media.
And I'm Sam Tanabe. I am the managing editor. We got to sit and talk with the cast and creator of the new Disney Plus series, Doogie Kamealoha MD.
We're excited to share these interviews with you now, and afterwards, stay tuned for a streaming of the show. First up is the executive producer and creator, Courtney Chang.
Great. So you've created an amazing show filled with representation and diversity. How did you and why did you come up with the show?
Well, I grew up watching the original Doogie Howser, and I also grew up in the 80s when there weren't a lot of shows with families that look like mine. The family in the show is very much based on my real life family. My dad is Korean. He grew up in Hawaii. He went to St. Louis High School. My mom is an Irish Catholic lady from upstate Pennsylvania. And they met, they fell in love. They had my two brothers and me. And we ended up moving to Pennsylvania, which is where I basically grew up. But we would go back to Hawaii and visit my grandma and my auntie and all my cousins. And I always wished that there was a show with a family that looked like mine. And one of the things growing up in Pennsylvania is people would meet me and I didn't quite make sense. So I would get questions like, where are you from? And then I would say, Hawaii, I was born in Hawaii. And everybody goes, oh, and it's sort of like they do the calculus on who I am and it makes sense. And one of the things I always loved about being in Hawaii and my time there is I immediately made sense to everyone. Like they saw me and my family and like they got it because there's so many folks who have families like mine there. And so I've always wanted to create a show with a family that was inspired by my family. And so when I heard they wanted to do this reboot, I started thinking about how I would put this together. And we took this high concept of the 16-year-old doctor and we infused it with a lot of my own experiences. And then once we cast it, the experiences of the cast, the writers that we have, the crew, who's mostly local folks who would do everything they could to make sure our story was authentic to this family and to this world we created. And so even though it started with this high concept idea, we all put our fingerprints on it and it became our experience and really a show that was infused with so much love and our experiences, and hopefully everybody will feel that aloha spirit.
Absolutely. I mean, I literally texted Sam and was like, oh my God, Doogie has a white mom, #one of us. So I was just, this is groundbreaking for the mixed API community. And it's just a thrill to see this representation on TV.
Yes, thank you for saying that. It's really, as we were crafting this, it was really important to me to sort of tell this story in a truthful way. It's interesting. My dad is Korean, like I said, and from Hawaii, and my mom is an Irish Catholic lady. And it's interesting because even that specific experience is very different from a family where the mom is Asian and the dad is white or, of another ethnicity. And so it's very specific. And I would love for there to be lots of shows that explore these different things and have these different colors. And, I was also saying as we were forming this, an Asian guy from Hawaii is very different from an Asian guy on the mainland. Like they're two different vibes. And so we were so excited to have Jason Scott Lee come do this with us because he's a local boy. He's from Hawaii. And he gets that local spirit, which is very much, Benny was crafted after my own father. And it's really interesting, as we cast, I didn't intentionally do this. And it wasn't until we were doing the show that I later realized the three kids we cast in the show, Peyton, Matt, and Wes, all come from families where the dad is Asian and the mom is white. And so we all oddly have this same experience. And it was really interesting. Like there was one time we were all sort of talking about it. And I'm not used to being in an environment where everybody else has that same experience. And so it was really exciting, just having that conversation with the cast and what that's like and how we infuse that into the show. And so it's been really exciting.
That's wild. It's really funny because Alex and I both have Asian dads and white moms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it is amazing that when you've discovered that and you're all like, well, this is uncommon. It's such a unique experience. It's still a unique experience for all of us. Even hearing that, I was like, whoa, blown away, because you don't always get to be in those kinds of rooms with those people. And like you said, even within that group, all of our experiences are still so different. So there definitely need to be more stories out there.
Yes, it was funny as we were shooting. I think it's in the second episode. There is a scene where Benny and Clara are slow dancing on the back porch together, and it's sort of this like very sweet romantic scene. And it's funny. Somebody on set was like, have we ever seen this on TV? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, an Asian husband and his white wife in this like romantic way. They're like, this might be the first time that this is portrayed in this way. Because there was a lot of our crew and was local and folks who are, come from families that are like ours. And so it was really cool. Like all of us were like, hey, yeah, this is great that we're getting to show this family in this way.
Totally.
It's beautiful.
It dives into that. We do a lot of discussions on breaking down stereotypes on Asian men and how they're portrayed in Hollywood and what the leading Asian man looks like and what kind of roles they can play. And we see that in your show. I think that's really cool.
Yes. It was important as we were sort of building this show to, show Benny in, I haven't seen that character on TV. He's sort of like a local dad, Hawaii style, and this is how he does things. And Jason is so charismatic and brings so much to the role. And so, yeah, it's exciting to have him in that role.
Was there a really big emphasis in the writer's room, and was it important to you to include a lot of authentic elements of local culture in the show and in the script?
Yes, it absolutely was. It's interesting because that's one of the things that I feel like being a mixed race person that I've sort of always struggled with is, identity and ownership of things. And, I was born in Hawaii, but then I moved away and basically grew up in Pennsylvania. And so it's interesting, like sometimes there'll be, Asian events or, somebody wants me to do something with that. And there's sometimes a feeling like I'm not Asian enough. And then there's also a feeling that I'm not quite, white enough to do that. And I also feel that way with my connection to Hawaii sometimes. I'm not native Hawaiian. I was born there and then I basically grew up in Pennsylvania. And so I'm not seeped in that, but I always would go back and visit. And, my grandma was there, my aunt, my uncles, I have family there. And so for me, and this family is very much inspired by my family. And so we really took great pains to be as accurate and authentic as we could to this family. And we had so many great members of our crew who were so helpful with that. And it's interesting because what you come to see is every family is different. And so there'd be some things that we'd be trying to figure out the best way to do it. And nobody could agree. It's like, no, it's not this, it's this other thing. And so it's interesting that, people have different perspectives. And what we always sort of came back to was like, what would be the most authentic to this family, to their experience? And what's great is another family in Hawaii would do it differently or would call it something else or would pronounce it a little, everybody has a little bit of a different thing. And so our hope is that this is the first of many shows that explore different families that are in Hawaii, that have all of these things, because sometimes in putting these shows together, I remember feeling this on Fresh Off the Boat, that everyone is so excited to have a show that was exploring the Asian experience. But it can't be everything to everyone.
Yes.
This is one story, and I feel a little bit that way in this. You know, I'm sure there's, you know, local folks or Asian folks who will watch and go, well, that's not, you know, I would, and it's like, of course, everybody's experience is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh gosh, I'm thinking of the next question.
It's just so interesting. Something that you said, Courtney, really resonated with me because my dad is Japanese American, but his family, my grandparents were from Hawaii. They grew up there. So I would also go and visit, but I grew up in the mainland. So it's this weird balancing of being Asian, being white, understanding bits of Hawaiian, like local culture, but not really being a part of it. And you're just in the middle all the time. That really resonated with me.
Yes, and I think it's really one of the things about Hawaii that's so great is it's so Asian friendly that I think we all feel so safe there and so welcome there. And, you know, but there's also like the native Hawaiians who you want to respect. And, you know, it's it's theirs, not ours. You know, we were lucky to come and, you know, be welcomed. And so it's really important to honor that, you know, it's because it is such a welcoming, wonderful place. And, you know, we really did in the show try to honor that as well. You know, Jason is Native Hawaiian, Matt Sato, who plays Kai, the older brother, is Hawaiian. Mapuana, who plays at the hospital, she's Hawaiian. We had several of our key crew and department heads who are Native Hawaiians. And so we really did try to honor that as best we could. That said, I still think we can do a better job of it. In season 2, I would love to, you know, dig more into the Hawaii of it all, you know, get more, you know, dig more into their stories that only this show can tell because it is set in Hawaii. And I feel like we just sort of we were only at the tip of the iceberg. And so I'm proud of the show we did. And I think there's always things that we could do better moving forward.
Yeah, that's ambitious, but that's the work the kind of work that needs to be done and some of the storytelling that needs to be done, especially for Native Hawaiians. It's really important. I love that. That's really fabulous.
It's wonderful. It really is. I just love this concept, and I love everything you're saying. It's just resonating so much with me, and I'm really excited for our audience to start watching the show and for us to share it with our community.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So does Ronnie Chang improv his dialogue, or is it scripted? Because his one-liners,
he is so funny, right? Oh my gosh, yes. He's hilarious. So we always have scripted lines for Ronnie, and what we would do on set is we have something called alt. So a lot of times, and not just Dr. Lee, but other characters as well, if there's a joke, we'll get a few different versions of jokes as well. And our cast is so fantastic that, you know, the writers loved writing jokes for Ronnie. And so we'd all have all these jokes for Ronnie. And then he would always be like, how about this? How about this joke? How about this joke? We were like, yes, yes, yes. And so it was really fun to have that, have him, you know, come up with lines for himself and do the lines that writers wrote for him. And it really was this great collaboration.
That's so really cool. Fun. He's so funny.
Oh my gosh, he is so hilarious. Yeah, and it was great. It's great because he was so fun to write for, and he would write stuff for himself as well. And he was always so respectful. He's like, what do you think about? I'm like, yes, do it. It's great. And so we had so much fun.
I have a question about what it was like balancing the sort of heaviness of a medical drama with this kind of quirky coming of age narrative that Disney Plus viewers are expecting to see. How did you manage that?
Yes, you know, to me, that was sort of one of the things I loved most about the original series is that it had these truly dramatic moments and also these fun comedic elements. And so being able to have both of those was something that was very important to us. And especially now in these pandemic times, I think it's important to have a show that's built in a way that you can experience all of these emotions. You know, in the pilot, there's something devastating that happens to Lahela. And I think because of that, it sets you up for a world that not everything's going to work out okay. Like it's not all going to get wrapped up in a bow by the end. But because of that, she can lean in more on her family and her friends and the people who love her most. And it helps to create that bond with them. And so it was a challenge in the beginning, balancing where the dials fall in that. But ultimately, it's what made the show so fun to create and do, is because you get to play those different moments.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
Do you have a specific episode that you would say that like this is literally an episode based upon my family?
Not so much a specific episode. I will say that there's certain dynamics. You know, the dynamic between Benny and Clara is very much my parents. And, you know, there's an Uncle John character we'll meet later in the season who's sort of the patriarch of the family, who's very much based on my real life Uncle John, who has a washing machine that he uses to tenderize his octopus. And so that's where that came from. And what was one of my favorite things on set is there was a few folks who came up to me and they were like, you know, I know someone who has a washing machine to tenderize their octopus. I was like, yeah. And there was like, you know, there was a guy across the street that did, like, it's a real thing that people have done. It's a little bit of local touch there. And so that's one dynamic that's really based on my real life family. And in the Kamealoha house, the pictures on the stairs are of my family. There's my mom's senior picture and my dad's senior picture, and you know, my grandparents, my great grandparents who came over from Korea, my Irish grandparents, and so they're very much represented in the show.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I'm like getting teary-eyed just like learning this. Oh wow. I mean, seriously, this is just the most, it really is groundbreaking for our community to see this representation on screen and have it. And I'm so excited for the younger generation coming up that will grow up with this. And hopefully, because they are seeing this on TV, their narratives about identity and belonging won't be as lonely as perhaps, you know, ours has been. And
totally.
So really, thank you for this. I think this is it's going to really help heal the community.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's one of the things that makes me very excited about the show is I have 3 girls, like I said, and I love that when they're growing up, their Doogie show is a girl who's from a mixed race family in Hawaii. And so it's really, I love that about it.
Yeah, that's really fun that they get a totally different version of Doogie.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, of course, she's a girl. She's like half Asian. She lives in Hawaii. Of course, what else would it be?
Of course,
you know?
Yeah.
We love some of the nods to the original Doogie too. Like Steph is always coming in through the window to hang out with Lahela, and the cold open is similar to the original Doogie Howser. Do you do other nods throughout the show, kind of Easter eggs that allude back to the original show?
Yes, there's a few storylines that we have that we've sort of touched on from the original and put into this one. You know, our goal for it was folks who love the original would see some things that felt familiar to them, and folks who never saw the original can just sit down and watch it. And so there's just a few little touches along the way. That was one thing that I knew we wanted to do, was have, because that's something I always remember from the show, is having Vinny crawl through the window in the original. So I was like, we have to have that. And I remember as we were looking for the house, I kept saying it needs to be a second story window, because that's what kind of friend she is. She loves her that much that she scales, like, it's not as impressive to just climb through a window on the first floor. Like, she's the kind of friend that has climbed to the second story window. And so I was very excited when we found that beautiful house that became the Kamealoha house.
Oh yeah, that house is gorgeous.
Yes.
That's so fun.
Great. Do you have anything
I
else,
don't have
Sam?
any more questions.
Yeah,
No.
neither do I. Thank you so
Courtney,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we talk with Jason Scott Lee, who plays Benny Kamealoha, local Hawaiian boy and father of the Kamealoha family. So our first question for you is, being from Hawaii, are there any father figures from your own life that inspired the character of Benny?
I think it's a fusion of many different father figures or uncles. Sort of the fun quality of it. My father was pretty stern and very strict, but you did see some comedic sides and of him. But I think it's a mixture of many different things. A mixture of even myself wanting to kind of break loose a little bit out of the drama box and kind of play in the comedy field. That's always fun and refreshing. And so a little bit of that.
Awesome. Well, both Sam and I have Asian American dads, and so there are a lot of stereotypes that come with that. How do you balance keeping your character relatable and authentic without crossing over into expected stereotypes?
I think the way it's written, the character, the way it's drawn, he's very easygoing, and he's sort of like the anchor in the family. He's sort of the guy that supports the working mom, the working wife, the genius daughter. And I think he's the support factor in that. So even the way it's drawn, he sort of takes a back seat, and he's not the breadwinner. So there's a lot of ego being, kind of deleted with that setup, right, with the status. And I think, creating that kind of character and making him sincere about that, that effort, and having that aloha spirit to really drop into it and feel like, hey, it's it's okay. You just stay in the moment and if you maintain in a little more being state, that this too shall pass. So I think he has that attitude. I think Benny has that attitude that there's a vulnerability about him, and I think that plays well, and it plays against ideas of stereotype for Asian dads.
Totally, yeah, I can see that. I'm curious to know if you play up the pigeon accent for the character. Was that something that you proposed? Was it something that the writers encouraged? And what other ways did you kind of bring more like local culture and authenticity to the show?
Yeah, I think when we first had discussions about Benny, the character of Benny, and we went back and forth. My big question was, what high school did he go to? Because that's the big question. Local people is because if you went to schools out in the rough part of the town, then you had a really heavy pigeon accent. And then if you went to a more, Punahou, yeah, or St. Louis or any of those, more glossy kind of schools, then it was different. And I think, with Benny, I said, I asked the developers, the producers and the creators, I said, how much pigeon do you want? I can turn it up. I can turn it up all the way where you won't hardly understand what I'm saying. You have to, subtitle me, or we can turn it back into. So we played around with it quite a bit to find the right balance, because, they didn't want it where you were not understandable. And I think with that, I was able to make Benny sort of the idea of, he did go off to the mainland. He did, go off and have this career in finance, and he did come back and kind of left the rat race to engage more with the family and be more of a local kind of tempered character. So that, those are the things that even from my history, being raised in Hawaii, there's a lot of things that I can do as an actor in between the dialogue that can make it more authentic, that can make him more like a sense of place, that he really is from there. And of course, I'm as authentic as they come. So, I was running around the streets of Oahu back in the late 60s, early 70s. So it was a pretty quiet town. It was very, very Hawaii.
Oh my God, that's great.
Oh, I bet you have stories.
Oh man.
So, because you're such an accomplished martial artist, I mean, you've played Bruce Lee. Will any of your skills come up in the show, or do you get to just enjoy playing the comedic fun dad?
I don't want to give away any spoilers, but yeah, I think one of the producers said, "Hey, we have the dragon. Why we should use him? We got to use him." So they said, they added an episode where I do a little bit of my thing, and so we have to wait and see.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. We are just so thrilled with this show, just seeing this a type of representation on screen, and every cast member we've talked to so far, it's just been such a delight, and it's just so rare to see this dynamic played out in mainstream media, and I'm so excited for the mixed API community to see this and feel the representation and see that their family can be portrayed on screen and it's the norm.
Yeah, and I was telling we had a panel with Courtney Kang and Melvin. I said, one of the funniest moments, I thought I was doing a scene where I was marinating bulgogi, and I told Courtney, I said, I've never heard of this food being shown or talked about in any show. And I said, it's bizarre to think that I asked her, will Western audience get it? And then Melvin says, well, hopefully they'll Google it. And I said, because I guess there's so many food shows out there that people are aware of these Asian foods that pop up from time to time. So, it could have been kalbi or it could have been anything, but, it was bulgogi. And I thought, oh, this is really fascinating. It's like, it's finally coming to the forefront.
It is. I mean, where we are, like, Korean barbecue joints are always packed with a variety of people. So, but we also live in very metropolitan areas. So I know that is not necessarily the norm, but it is exciting to see like our foods being on screen, and there's no explanation needed. It just is. And that's, yeah, just like you're playing an Asian dad, and that just is. There's no explanation needed, and I just think it's so refreshing, and yeah, it's just very cool. You're playing. This is groundbreaking, and I'm just so excited that we get to see this, and that the upcoming young mixed APIs will have this chance to see this type of representation, and you're just.
It shows a lot of color, this is real authentic, to the way of being kind of thing. So
yeah,
you're not playing a thief or a gang member or anything.
Right? It's nice. Yeah, I mean, you're not. It's really is just so cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people on our staff particularly are really excited about the show and do see it as groundbreaking because of the portrayal of the family. And it's just the way it is. And I think that's the way, it's very normal in Hawaii, but it's not so normal on the mainland, especially for a lot of people, like Alex said, who don't live in more metropolitan areas. So, yeah, I don't know if you feel that way being from Hawaii, but for
absolutely, it's like
it's
like when I heard that was the case, I was like, wow, it's like I've never in my career, I've been doing it like 30 years, I never got to play like this type of character with so many dynamics. Having family, having the different levels of children in different ages, and just a real kind of like acceptance of like where we are. This is Hawaii. It's a multicultural melting pot. We're all mixed in some fashion. I'm not purely Hawaiian. I'm not purely Chinese. I'm a mix of Hawaiian and Chinese, and and that cultural aspects are important, I think, to share. Especially and the activities that we share as well. So it's not just a show that's in a box. It's not a show. It's showing the technicolor of Hawaiian Islands. It's showing the nature of Hawaiian Islands, and that's a character in itself that kind of like helps project this feeling of warmth, this feeling of sincerity, this feeling of like caring, and it's hard to get material like that out on a platform, so I think and the producers are very, very happy with it. They think very real.
Awesome.
That's great. We're really excited to continue watching the show. We love your character. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
You're welcome. Thanks.
We also got to talk with Matthew Sato and Wes Tien, who play Lahela's brothers, Kai and Brian Patrick.
As well as Emma Maisel, who plays the BFF, Steph.
And I'm going to start with you, Matthew. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So since you have a background in music, can we expect any musical moments from your character, Kai?
No. Not really. Unfortunately, no.
maybe season 2.
Yeah, we'll see.
There you go. What's up, everyone? My name's Sam, and I'm the managing editor for Mixed Asian Media. So Matthew, I'm going to keep on asking you, as a mixed Asian actor, do you have any significant differences in how you're treated in LA versus Hawaii, either in like your day-to-day life or in casting?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a major difference. I mean, especially in Hawaii, because in Hawaii it's so normal and so common. It's just such a melting pot of culture, which was why it was such a perfect, place to do this show, because the whole show surrounds around that family feel and that dynamic and the diversity and loving everyone for who they are. So it was the perfect spot for it. And it, going back to Hawaii, which is where I'm from, that's what's normal for me. So coming to LA, it's always a little different. And yeah, I mean, it's the perfect, it was perfect.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that. So where do you live now? Is your home base in Hawaii or are you in LA?
So I am kind of part-time in both. Right now I'm in Los Angeles filming something, but I go back and forth all the time. But Hawaii's home.
Cool. Very cool.
Hawaii's home.
That's awesome. So Matt, tell us, how much does the Kamealoha family resemble your family in real life?
It really does. It's pretty crazy because my dad is Asian American Pacific. He's Japanese, Chinese, Hawaiian. And then my mom is Caucasian. And it's the same mix that we have in the show. And for me, I never had something to watch on TV growing up with a family like that. I mean, that I can remember. So now that kids will have a show to watch like that, I think it's really cool because I would have loved it growing up.
Sam and I were talking about that as well for us. We were just like, whoa, it's like our families. This is so cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys are
cool
mixed, aren't you?
Yes, we are. Mixed Asian Media. It's an outlet all written by mixed Asians, and we even have a festival coming up. So yeah.
You got to send us that info.
Okay, Mixed Asian Media Fest. And then Emma, hi.
Hey.
Your character is so fun, and I just love how creepy yet endearing you are. Has any of your own personal experiences helped bring Steph to life?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely identify as creepy. No, it was so much fun to play Steph. And I mean, who hasn't had that all-encompassing crush where you just kind of have to lay it out all on the line and you just see it with that person? I mean, especially when you're 16, when you have a crush on someone, it really takes over your everything you think about. So I think that is definitely where Steph's head is at the moment, about Kai for sure. But it was so much fun to play Steph. She's so bold and charismatic and loves to make an entrance and wears the coolest clothes and colors. So it was just really exciting to play her.
Totally. I can totally see that. So what was it like getting to film in Hawaii for you? Did you get to learn a lot about Hawaiian culture and local life by filming there? Or did you have any sort of connection to Hawaii before?
Yeah, no, this was the first time I had ever been to Hawaii and it was incredible. And I mean, Matt is from there. So it was I had a private tour guide, which was amazing. And just to learn about the culture, and everyone was so open and welcoming and loving, and they were so willing to teach me, and I was very open to receiving and learning. And so I really just feel like I have family out there now, and it was just such an incredible experience.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And Wes, so this is your first major success as an actor at 12. How do you like it so far?
I mean, it's it's pretty amazing. I mean, I expected it to be, I didn't expect for it to be like on such a huge and amazing platform like Disney Plus or be in Hawaii or anything. And I just think, I don't know, I'm just so happy. And yeah.
Okay, so we read that you really enjoy like writing and directing yourself. What kind of stuff are you into? And do you have any projects that you're working on or developing?
I mean, I'm pretty much open for like all genres. I love comedy, action, everything. And for films that I'm working on, I just finished making one with my friends that we're planning on submitting to a film festival.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That's
Congratulations.
awesome. Are you in that film or did you just work creatively on it?
I'm in that one too, just not as big. It depends on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. I have one more question just for the whole cast. Like, so what's your favorite episode?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Okay, so for me, there's an episode where Kai decides that he's found his own calling and he's found what's going to make him happy. And he has to, I don't want to say what it is, but he has to deal with his parents not approving of it. And he decides that he's going to go and do it anyway because it's what makes him happy. And you'll see.
Awesome.
Totally. I think that's something a lot of people will be able to relate to.
Yeah.
What about you, Emma?
Yeah, my favorite episode, I think, would be at one point in the season, Lahela and Steph kind of have a rift in their friendship. And you can kind of see where like signals are missed and there's miscommunication. And you kind of like get to like see how different their lives are and how that can be a struggle in friendships, especially when growing up, because you tend to grow apart. But you know, there's always like that solid like foundation of like friendship and love and family within their relationship. So that's my favorite episode so far.
What about you, Wes?
I'm not sure. I would probably say if I had to think of any, it would maybe be this is hard. I love them all, but okay, I guess like episode there's an episode where Brian Patrick wants to learn hula dancing, and it was super fun because I got to work with Jason Scott Lee, who plays the dad, and he got to teach me some hula dances, and we eventually perform on stage in the episode. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's really fun. Hula is hard. I have family in Hawaii and they hula and I'm no good. So kudos to you.
Seriously.
For getting to learn some.
Yeah,
Wes, those chest hairs like coming in, Wes.
Oh,
sorry, Matt, what did you say?
No, I totally just cut you. I said that Wes was going into training and everything for hula, but
yeah, totally. No, it's so specific. It's really hard to learn. Good job.
They're really good.
Wes, I was just teasing you. I just said, how are those chest hairs coming in?
Oh.
Mine's still on.
Yeah, you got those Asian genes, so they might never come. Don't worry about it.
They'll never come.
It's all good.
Next up are Mapuana Makia and Jeffrey Boyer Chapman, who play hospital residents Noelani and Charles.
Nice to meet you both. I would love to start with Mapuana.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. So you've been part of Aloha, Finding Ohana, and now Doogie. It's like so honestly cool and rare for our audience to see a mixed Asian Pacific Islander playing a mixed Asian Pacific Islander. So what has it been like for you to go from a movie like Aloha, where Native Hawaiians seem to be part of the background and characters were whitewashed, to Finding Ohana and now Doogie, and where the heritage is in the forefront?
Mm-hmm. It feels like it's sort of a metaphor for how things have been sort of progressing throughout the years that I have done said films, from Aloha and the controversy behind that film. And then we're like, okay, finding Ohana, which I was not only Nurse Tina in, but I was also part of the crew. So they hired me on as sort of a unspoken cultural consultant, and then I was able to hire other cultural consultants to deal with a lot of the Hawaiian content that not even I sort of knew about. And they were so careful, and we blessed each location that we were at, because that is something that in Hawaii we do culturally. And so there was that kind of amount of care and amount of thoughtfulness that was taken in each and every single step in that movie. I'm personally very proud of what we did and accomplished. And then now you have Doogie Kamealoha MD, which is written by and show run by someone who is of Hawaii born. So we're getting to see this like really awesome like importance of authenticity. And I have to tell, I can't even tell you, both Alex and Sam, how many times like I would tear up because people actually cared and thought about it, and even asked me in my casting process, like, what is your background? Are you of Hawaiian descent? And I was so proud to be able to say, yes, I am. I'm here. Like, Pidgin is my first language. I got this. So thank you for the question. And it's such a nice reminder, as I'm telling you, how close we are and how far we've come in the progression of authenticity.
I'm getting teared up just listening to you. It truly just gives me chills, and our audience is going to be like so happy seeing this representation, because it's something I didn't grow up with or Sam didn't grow up with. And now we're seeing it. And it's just so beautiful.
Oh, Alex, don't get us crying, girl.
Sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's the story of our lives with Mapuana, and we get crying and we can't stop.
Oh, man.
Oh. That's so interesting that you talk about this progression that we're on in terms of casting representation, Mapuana. Do you feel like, as a Hawaiian actor, that you're able to bring some of your perspective and culture to all the roles you play? Or have you found that as a Hawaiian actor, you're limited in types of roles that you get called in for or have gotten to do?
I have to say, Sam, honestly, that there was a part of me that was fearful of sort of being only cast, or maybe only being seen as a Hawaiian actor, or all of those kinds of things. But I've been very lucky now that I've been able to do other roles that, sure, Hawaiian is a part of who I am, but it's not everything. It's not all of me. It's been really nice. And actually, there's been a couple of roles, like, from the role of Nurse Tina, who's like full on Hawaiian pidgin, like tell it like it is girl. And then I have another role that I'll play later on here in Canada, where I am playing a Hawaiian, but this Hawaiian grew up in the Pacific Northwest. So she's different. And it's fun to get to see, I think we all know this, right? Like, within the realms of our races, or within the realms of our backgrounds, we're complex humans too. And we bring a lot of our ness to shows, especially being, and sorry to keep telling, go on, but I was just talking about this with my makeup artist the other day, what it is to be half, and how we don't really feel like we fit in anywhere sometimes.
Yes.
That's sort of, I'm starting to learn, or trying to learn, how to just embrace that and then figure out what that is. And I feel so grateful now to know that there's other, people half like me. Minji was half Korean and half white. So we just sort of talked about that. And I know that we can all relate, I feel like.
Yeah, we like to refer to ourselves as biracial angels.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
He has a t-shirt he's made. It's incredible. I wear it all the time.
Oh, that's
Biracial
awesome.
Angel Club.
I love that. We should probably do that for our media outlet.
Yeah.
For everyone.
That's so funny.
Great. So Jeffrey, was it a dream getting to shoot in Hawaii?
I mean, this project was a dream on so many levels. I can't even begin. I don't even know where to begin, truthfully, to work with Courtney Chang, who I'm such a huge fan of personally and professionally, to be on a show that is really centered on female empowerment and AAPI representation, to film on the island of Oahu, to be working with so many locals. The majority of our crew were all Hawaiian locals. So several of our cast members, our series regulars, are Hawaiian natives, Mapuana Makia, Matt Sato, Jason Scott Lee, to play this character that is really seeing the Hawaiian culture for the first time and being able to see it through his eyes and have the audience learn about Hawaiian culture through his eyes as well, was just such a joy to play. The opportunity to play an openly queer character as an openly queer man on a Disney Plus show. I mean, that's truly, it's fulfilling the original intention as to why I became an actor in the first place. When I was a kid, as a biracial angel, mixed baby, queer kid, I didn't have the privilege of turning on my television and seeing reflections of myself bounce back at me. All of us in this room can relate to that. So knowing that if that was ever going to exist, I would have to be a part of it, helping to fill that void in some capacity. It's just, it truly is beyond a dream come true.
Yep. I'm gonna cry.
Totally.
Oh, you
That's
crying,
awesome.
Mapu?
It's just, once again, like chills. Really, it is just so beautiful to
Yeah.
see the amount of diversity and representation on the show.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just so thrilled to be able to present this to our audience.
Us too.
Yeah, seriously. Jeffrey, I'm a fan of yours from watching Drag Race. So
Awesome.
it was really fun to see you in Doogie Kamealoha. It seems like your character is sort of the stereotypical like Haole transplant who doesn't quite understand all the ins and outs of like local culture. So do you think that's accurate? Is like that's part of the storyline there? And did you get to learn more about local culture while you were there filming?
I mean, I definitely knew going into it that Charles was the eyes into the island from the mainland. So his naivete and his learning process was all a part of the character, and it was all very intentional on Courtney Kang's part. So everything that he's stumbling through and learning, whether it's Hawaiian lingo or certain food or just locations or whatever it may be, Mapuana's character Noelani served as a teacher for him, which teaches the audience by proxy. So I mean, I was aware of that straight out the gate. And what was the second part of your question?
No, did you personally find yourself getting to learn more? I mean, I think obviously you did through the script,
Definitely.
but also by being there.
Oh, absolutely. So we were there for about 4.5 months of filming. I'd been to Hawaii several times before, but only for a week at a time, and visiting as a tourist is a completely different experience than getting the opportunity to live and work there for 4.5 months. The time we were there was also right in the middle of COVID. We arrived in January of 2021. So the island was really restrictive as to who they allowed on. So the majority of people who were there on Oahu with us were locals, which was just a completely different experience than anything that I had ever had in the past. So yeah, I mean, I was thrown into local culture. I soaked it up. Something that I was so aware of and so grateful for was the reverence for the land, for spirituality, for the ancestry of the island. Mapuana and I went to this really beautiful location in Waikiki called the Kapemahu Stones, which are these 4 massive rocks where the lore is 4 trans healers came 1,000 years ago to the island of Oahu from Tahiti and were the medicine women of the island. And there's just such a reverence for LGBTQ culture and for transness and the spectrum of gender that just doesn't exist anywhere else I've been in the world. That was very, very special. So yeah, I was highly aware of everything I didn't know when I was so open to learning.
Wow.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. That's so beautiful. Thank you both so much, and congratulations. And
Yeah, congrats.
thank you.
Finally, we talk with the star of the show, Peyton Elizabeth Lee. We hope you enjoy our finer interview with Peyton and the rest of the first annual Mixed Asian Media Festival.
So, were you familiar with the original Doogie before taking on this role?
I actually was not. When I got the audition, I didn't have any real experience with the show. It was on a little before my time, but my parents were big fans of the show. And right when I got the audition, I sat down and started watching the original.
Totally, that makes sense. So did you have to put in research on your own to portray Lahela, the medical professional? Were you nervous about taking on such like a knowledgeable medical role?
Definitely. I mean, I think a lot sort of rested on that, because if you don't buy into the idea of a teenage doctor, the show doesn't work, you know? So it really had to be believable, and you had to feel like, oh yeah, this is what it would be like if there was a 16-year-old doctor. And so there was a lot of preparation on my end that had to take place, research, you know, YouTube, Google, WebMD. And we had this incredible doctor on set anytime we were doing any of the medical scenes that was there to consult and walk me through, you know, the dialogue or the procedures or whatever it was that we were doing. So I really not only had memorized the lines, but knew what I was saying and what I was talking about and what I was doing, because I think that all kind of adds to the authenticity of it all.
Absolutely.
Totally.
So it
That's
has,
really cool.
yeah, that is really cool. I what a fun job for that doctor.
Definitely, yeah.
So has working on the show changed your perspective on community and belonging? And do you have any shared experiences with Matthew, who is from Hawaii, or was growing up on the mainland as a woman of mixed Asian descent totally different?
Yeah, I mean, I think any person that is non-white, in a sense, has a shared experience. You know, we all have some sort of feeling of being other, you know. And so in doing what I do, from, you know, the time I started with Andy Mack and then into Secret Society and then now with Doogie, it's always been very important to me, being a biracial girl, to portray an authentic version of what it is to be mixed race growing up, you know. And so being able to talk to Matt and about his experience in Hawaii, and Courtney and her experience, our amazing creator, it was really cool to sort of, you know, learn from them and share my experience and how they were similar and how they were different, and also kind of draw inspiration from everyone's own stories in bringing Lahela to life.
Totally. Something we were talking to Courtney, and she told us that you also have an Asian dad, and she does, and I believe Matthew and Wes, I want to say.
Yes.
Yes, I just thought that was so cool, because Sam and I also have Asian dads, and it is such a rarity to see that portrayed on TV and mainstream media. So it's just really cool to see this.
Definitely. I'm not entirely sure why, and I don't even know if I had really realized it until I talked to Courtney about this, but usually when there is a biracial Asian American family, the mom is Asian. And it's a very interesting stereotype. And I also think, you know, there is definitely a dynamic that's very different when you have an Asian dad and a white mom.
Absolutely.
So sort of getting to dive into that and what that really means and why that is, and the nuances of that for this show was really cool for me, because it's something I'd never really thought about before.
Yeah, it's really nice to see your show family portrayed on the screen. It's a really awesome representation for a lot of people out there who haven't seen that on any sort of mainstream platform before. And even though like everyone here is of mixed Asian descent, all of our stories are still super different. And that's something Courtney had emphasized earlier. A lot of mixed Asian people in the United States do have ties to Hawaii, but there's plenty of mixed Asians out there who don't as well. So I was curious, do you have any familial ties or anything to Hawaii yourself? Or did you get to learn a lot by being there and filming the show?
Yeah, I actually personally do not have any Hawaiian in me. But because of that, it was very important for me to learn as much as I possibly could and talk to as many local people as possible to bring the story to life in the most truthful way. So in being in Hawaii and immersing myself in the culture and researching and talking to the local cast and crew that we had, I learned a lot and tried as much as possible to sort of bring their story to life.
Cool. Yeah.
So you've been paving the way for mixed Asian representation in the media since Andy Mack. And how does it feel to continue down this path with Doogie?
It's very exciting, you know. I mean, it's always been my dream to be an actor and to be a storyteller. And, you know, having the ethnic background that I do, it just carries sort of that much more weight, for better or for worse. And so I've sort of, you know, tried as much as I can to, you know, use it for good and hopefully inspire young people that look like me to know that they can do anything and that they can be at the forefront of their own stories.
Awesome.
I love that. Yeah. Do you have any specific moments that come to mind that are your favorite Lahela moments or favorite episodes entirely?
You know, I think I love all the episodes, and I think there's something special about each of them. I think the pilot has a very special place in my heart because it was my first introduction to the show. It was my first introduction to Lahela, the character, and I think it does such a great job of setting up the story and really introducing you to Lahela and to all the characters in a way that makes you immediately feel like you know them and relate to them and understand them, which I think is special. And not every show does that in the first episode. So I would say, yeah, the pilot's probably my favorite.
Yeah, the pilot is super charming, and pilots can be hard because you have so much you have to set up in the first episode and you need to hook everyone in. It's really cute. I'm really excited to see the rest of the show as well.
Me too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think our audience is just going to love it so much. And I'm so excited to share this interview with you and the cast, with our Mixed Asian Media family.
Oh, yay. Me too.
So we saw that your dad is in a couple of episodes in this season. What's it like for you being on set with him?
It was actually so much fun having him on set. I mean, acting is something we both love, and it's really cool to be able to, you know, share that and then, you know, put it all into practice on a real set. And especially because the set was just a place that I fell in love with, and I fell in love with the people there. So it was really cool to sort of be able to bring him into that and have him experience firsthand just how great the work environment was that we had there.
That's so cool. So what's next for you? Are there any specific types of shows or roles that you're dying to play?
You know, I'm really trying to stay open as much as possible. I hope we get to shoot more of this show. And, you know, in terms of future projects, I'm just looking for roles that are good role models for young people, especially little half Asian girls out there. So that's what I'm looking for. I am studying for the SAT. I have senior year. So kind of a lot of stuff.
Yes, you're busy.
God.
You're very busy.
God. Yeah, good luck on the test. I'm sure you'll be fine. We were talking with Kathleen earlier just about Hawaiian food and all the really great things she got to experience while she was shooting there. Do you have a favorite Hawaiian treat? She had mentioned she loves spam musubi, and she was wondering why she hadn't had it before she had filmed the show. Is there anything you really love from being there?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to copy Kathleen, but spam musubi was the world's best kept secret. I mean, it's so funny because the executive producer of our show, he loved spam musubi, and I was like, okay, it sounds kind of gross, but okay, right? And then it was on set every day, and eventually I was like, fine, I'm starving, I'll try it. And from then on, I had one every day, and so it's been sad being back.
It's
because
so good.
They're harder to find here. I mean,
Yes.
Emma and I went on like an hour-and-a-half trip looking for them because we missed them, and so yeah.
I wonder if King's Hawaiian
Yes,
Brett has
that's
it.
where we ended up.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh
But
my
it
gosh.
took us a while to find one.
Yes, we do not have that in New York, sadly. So I rely on my friends that are from Hawaii to make it for me.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. If you like that, I highly recommend trying spam fried rice.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I guess I have to ask this then, or we have to ask this: boba or Hawaiian shaved ice?
Ooh, that's a really good question. For me personally, I'd have to say boba.
Me too. You can't. I love it. I can't help it.
Same.
It's a food and a drink,
There you go.
Shaved ice is neither, so
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Peyton. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time to meet with
you.
us today.
Of course, thank you guys.